I'm also reminded of the very term God, which, like Sean said, and like we know, for example, Theos, in my language, it will be something else. And I'm just reminding how these terms can be very vague. In my mind, if I would say Theos, I know that I'm referring to the biblical God. If I would
Hmm.
speak to a member of another religion or a skeptic who still doesn't know what he or she believes, for them it could be anything else. Sometimes when people, at least in my culture, when they're so gifted and they operate so well in something, it could be in sport. People say, "Oh, he's a god," or something like that. Just typing. Labeling them with this um, to this level almost as they're superhumans, even though of course we know they're just regular people, but they're so gifted and they're walking this and they're so better than others in any sphere of business or profession or anything they do in life. There's so much difference. So again, this terminology can be very vague, and I'm also reminded of the ancient Near East label for a god, which was in general El. It wasn't just a biblical phrase. El was also used, as we covered, I think, with you, Carrie, or maybe with someone else a while ago. That this terminology was used by different nations. It wasn't just exclusively only for the Jews. So they had their own El, but pagans also had their own El. I don't think it was the same deity, but that was the same noun. I don't think it was a name for God, but more a noun like Elohim, or I would say God, or I would say Bog in my language, or they would say Theos, right? So we have all these nouns which they describe the function of this entity, but they don't necessarily explain who. I don't want to say he or she, but let's say it is for in general for this group of entities.
Yeah, I think in regards to the word El, I think that is specifically referring to like the higher level deity. So if you're talking about a pantheon, or a culture who's familiar with pantheons, El is not going to be a lower deity. So I think that when we see God being referred to as El in Bible, it's specifically calling to that functionality and that sovereignty of God being the highest. It's used in like polemical passages in Isaiah and places like that, and that's why it's attached to other words as well,
Hmm.
phrases for like El Shaddai and things like that.
And I think that, like, with the idea of El Elyon, the God Most High, you see this actually cross both testaments, and it does have a pattern in its use. So, like, the first time it's used in the Old Testament is with Melchizedek, when he says that he's the priest of the Most High, and so you have Abraham, the person who's following God, and then you have this king priest that is following the Most High God as a priest of that deity. You start seeing this pattern being used in the Old Testament, where Daniel uses Most High 10 times. Well, 9 of those times, it is in direct communication with Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadnezzar speaking about Yahweh. And in the New Testament, the first time that it's used in Mark is with the Gerasene demoniac, right? He's so, son of the Most High, what do I have to do with you? And there's a couple other times that it's used. Paul uses it when he's speaking to people that are not familiar with the Jewish faith. So there is this, if you're trying to call out the Most High God, and there's a lot of different cultures that will have one, unnamed or unknown or unreachable or you're not able to speak to them because they're so far beyond. But this is the thing that in the New Testament and in the Bible has been used to cross that boundary and say, this is the person that we're speaking of. Acts 17. That's the thing that we're trying to bring knowledge of, and that he's not just distant and not impersonal. It's that he's very personal. So
And that's a really interesting title too. And maybe this is a launching point for the next part, or where we want to go. Why name the Most High if there's nothing else? You know, why also super interesting that almost every instance comes up in interaction with another culture or
Yes.
person, right? That it's not just Judeo-Christian humans. There's something else going on there.